with the Lessons Learned podcast. Everything seems to be going according to plan. So, yeah, we have zero drop frame. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Lessons Learned podcast. We were just talking about the possibility of having a tropical storm hit my area in a next couple days. Tomorrow, there's Wednesday to Thursday. Yeah, so tomorrow. Hopefully, it won't get worse. Just be a nuisance. We'll get some rain, but that'll be it. Not part of the regular news of gaming news, but just it is what it is. So let's hope nothing happens. So hi everybody, and we are going to talk about. Well, you know what? We had so many bad news as of late that I thought, hey, let's find some good news to liven up the podcast. Talk about all the horrible things in the video game industry or the world at large. Except that I couldn't really find any happy-go-lucky news to fill like a half an hour show or something like that. So I said, we're going to go back to the things that we love about video games, the things that bring us joy. Before we do that, we're going to cover the news, which are not necessarily bad. Oh. Chavo keeps bugging me. Thank you for the joining. For the sub.
Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps bugging me.
Oh, it did that.
Yeah, it did that. We'll start with Minecraft. The game that is so much of a game that is almost not a game. This Minecraft mod lets you build a PC in-game, and yes, Doom works. This is by Sean Prescott at PC Gamer. VN Computers uses VirtualBox to have PC gaming inside a PC game. Okay, how do you wind down in Minecraft after a busy day spent punching trees, spelunking for rare materials, and fending off creeper mobs? Whatever it is you do, and really, I want to know. Do you really? You can now add Play Doom to the list because with the help of new mod, retro PC gaming has come to Minecraft. And it explains that you can actually have a screen on it and play Minecraft. So I guess you can build a house, put a PC, power it up, and then play Doom inside it. Which is
It's like it's the whole like, oh, will it run Doom? I guess now this time we're seeing if if Doom can be played within a different game.
Pretty much.
Actually, now that just kind of makes me curious to see if there's been. I'm sure there has been like Doom, like Little Big Planet levels, or now that dream game. I wonder if there's like Doom Doom levels, which I'm sure would probably get like taken down because copyright.
Yeah, it happens. So yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean it's interesting that how people we got to the point where we're in a game within a game. And the thing about Minecraft I consider it to be like the epitome of a pure game because it's all about just playing the game itself and giving maximum control to the players. But it's so much of the game that that it goes into game design, right? You're actually installing something that is through VirtualBox to boot operating system ranging Windows 95 to Windows 98 inside Minecraft. So, basically what you're doing is the real trick is trying to appear in Minecraft, but it's a VirtualBox which has been done before, right? In other news, for those who want to hear about it and want to play this game, Phantasy Star Online 2 comes to Steam on August 5th from Steven Messner. Finally, you don't have to deal with Windows Store to play PSO2 anymore, which is good news because I don't know anybody who wants to deal with the Microsoft Store unless they have to. Phantasy Star Online 2, much anticipated launch in North America, was a mess. The Japanese MMO launched exclusively on the Windows Store, which led to a ton of weird problems where people couldn't install the game properly, had unbearable lag in player hubs, or the game just refused to launch. While many of those issues have been ironed out with patches over the past few months, Phantasy Star Online 2 Steam page appeared today, and the release date will be August 5th. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing when I was trying to play Star Wars The Old Republic. The way of installing directly from Origin was just a mess because you had to install get in an Origin, the free version, and you had to go to their page, and it was like I just gave up. And then they put it on Steam, and it was much simpler. And I was like, oh, hey, Steam, there you go.
Hmm.
So yeah, I hope Microsoft just either revamps that entire store or just dumps it because it's not good. No bueno.
I don't. I really don't think they're gonna dump it. They're not Google. They seem to kind of stick to their guns for the most part on with technology and services. I mean, the only I'm sure there's more, but the biggest thing that like Microsoft kind of acts that was pretty widely announced was that hollow glass thing.
HoloLens, yeah.
Yeah, with the creepy conquer uh character.
Talking about Steam uh, and Microsoft, Gabe Newell thinks Xbox Series X is better than the PlayStation 5. He's staying in New Zealand, so he might as well get a next gen console war going. That's kind of weird that he was. Hmm. I'm gonna read this because the owner is currently hanging out in New Zealand, probably one of the finest places in the world to be because he has money and the coronavirus, basically, it's being extinct down there. After he decided to stay when the coronavirus struck back in March, he's putting on a free concert with live music and VR stands to thank the country, but also taking some time to stroke the fires of console rivalry. Valve doesn't have a stake in the battle of console top dog, according to Newell, but he was still happy to share his 2 cents while the host of Current Affairs show the project. They asked which of the two incoming consoles gets his recommendation, and he didn't even need to think about it. According to the quoting the quote, Xbox X Series X, he said immediately, unless we could call on the program Xbox Series whatever. It's better because it is. He added, okay. Well, then the rivalry between platforms seems to be antiquated now, with every console getting closer and closer to just be a PC and exclusive being increasingly rare. Maybe Newell is just a bit bored, wants to rekindle that rivalry.
I guess like like I don't know. Like the whole console war thing, it feels antiquated at this point, but maybe because we're at the end of one and
Mm-hmm.
or maybe I'm personally just kind of tired of it. It's like I'm just gonna go with whichever one looks cool and has the games that I want to play on it. But I feel like the console wars, this might be hopeful thinking. It might just die down a bit now that you got the Xbox Game Pass, which is my understanding is going to be like cross compatible with
Mm-hmm.
PC.
Yeah.
Although it's still gonna be, they're still gonna be exclusives for the Xbox because they're gonna want to sell that machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then no one, I think, really counts the Switch as competition within that war. And performance-wise, it can't compete, but it's more of a novelty portable unit
Mm-hmm.
with like potential to be a home console. And I guess now that like Microsoft is, or not Microsoft, Sony seeing like the dominant winner, like the I think like it feels like it's sort of like the end of of the console wars. But we'll see. Maybe it'll start up again at the at the beginning of the next generation.
Or we have another Switch where it goes back to Microsoft dominating, where PlayStation dominated before. We've seen that before, so yeah. So yeah. Talk about stuff that might affect the console wars. Ubisoft reportedly canceled a King Arthur RPG from Dragon Age designer Mike Laidlaw. This is from Facer Brown over at PC Gamer. Former creative boss Sergey, what's his name, pulled the plug. And I say Sergey, what's his name, because he's implicated in stuff we talked last week that was very nasty over at Ubisoft, and he got fired. He didn't quit, he got fired. Ubisoft former chief creative officer Sergey, what's his name, who recently resigned amid multiple allegations of abuse, reportedly wielded a huge amount of influence over Ubisoft games, using it to minimize female protagonists, and according to a new Bloomberg report, squashing games in genres he didn't like. So I'm going to link to the Bloomberg report done by Jason Schreier. In fact, and I'm just literally switching. In fact, Layla was directing development of a role-playing game codenamed Avalon, according to people familiar with the project. It was a big-budget adventure involving stories of King Arthur and his round table in a sword and sorcery fantasy world full of knights and legends. But just over a year later, before releasing any games, Laidlaw quit. According to current and former employees, Avalon was cancelled by Ubisoft's powerful chief creative officer, Sergei what's his name, wielding an unusual amount of control over the content of the French publishing powerhouse. What's his name was credited for blockbusting franchise like Far Cry. Okay. Just watch the last vlog on YouTube. I don't. A first-person shooter series and a subsequent series of action-based games based on historical events like the Crusades and in settings such as ancient Egypt. But what's his name wasn't a fan of the fantasy genre, even though Assassin's Creed is very much fantastical anyway. I mean, it just has the trappings of sci-fi, but it's fantasy, right? So I don't know. Wasn't a fan of fantasy genre, set a high bar for Avalon team in Quebec City, Canada. If they're going to make a fantasy game, it has to be better than Tolkien, he told them, according to people familiar with the project. I'm like, well, how can you be better than a book when you're making a video game? That's just sort of like the wrong measuring stick. For starters, right? It's like, oh, let's compare this to a book. Like, but you're not writing a book. You're making a video game. So, well, TF, what the hell, right? That's the first sign. And I say what's his name because his last name is hard to pronounce, at least for me. And also, I don't want to give this person more credit than they're worth. Sorry, I'm not gonna do that. And yet another news, going back to Steam, and this is by Andy Shock on PC Gamer. Steam is adding support for built-in beta testing. The new feature enables developers to invite users to playtest directly from their Steam pages. Isn't this what early access is all about? I guess the difference is now you don't have to pay for the privilege of beta tasting someone else's game, which I think is good.
Yeah, well, I would assume the difference is that, like, with early access, you get in earlier, it might be a cheaper game. But if this is just beta testing, then you only get you get to beta test the product until the it becomes a release, and then afterwards you have to buy it.
Yeah.
Even though you help beta test it essentially for free.
So before you pay for the privilege, now you're giving your labor for free, so to speak.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah,
I don't think it's like beta testing like a newer version of like the Steam interface and shit.
So let me read you the first paragraph. Running a beta test on Steam is normally something of a hassle because developers have to hand out individual Steam keys to each person who wants to take part. But Valve is apparently trying to eliminate that aggravation by adding a new option that enables developers to incorporate testing signups directly into their Steam pages. Also, I mean, you also want to beta test the Steam interface as well.
Yeah,
it's not simply a matter of playing the game. You also want to play it through Steam's ecosystem and the net codes and all that, right?
Yeah, because I feel like the way if they want to just beta test a game, they have to essentially make like a storefront for the beta, and that's what you get a key for, just the beta. And then once the game is released and stuff, that beta gets shut down, and it's I think you still have like the beta show up as your in your library, in your collection. But if you want the actual full game, you have to go out there and buy it.
Yeah. It makes sense. Now going over to Kotaku, surprise, Cuphead is out for PS4 today. So if you have a PS4 and haven't played Cuphead, which is out for PC and Xbox, it used to be an Xbox exclusive until now, I guess. According to Mike Fahey, you can do that. Surprise announcement this morning, part of Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest. Keenly, I won't say nightly, but it's not. There's no end there. Studio MDHR lovable animated adventure Cuphead is finally coming to PlayStation 4 today. Originally launched on PC and Xbox in October 2017, Cuphead made it to Mac OS in 2018, and Nintendo Switch in 2019. Wow, PlayStation really got shafted there. Now PlayStation 4 players get their turn as Cuphead and Mugman eventually launched in PlayStation 4 store for $19.99. Studios MDR commemorated the release with special stop motion on trailer. So if you haven't played Cuphead and you have a PlayStation, hey, you can play it now for $20, which is not a bad price, not a bad deal, I think. I guess I also paid to like that there's no exclusives. It's just now it's not true exclusives; it's just time exclusives, right? Which is
well, like we're seeing now a lot of the exclusives on the on Sony's consoles are now starting to show up on Steam.
Mhm.
And it's like it feels like a time exclusive, although wasn't the sort of the reason that like the Cuphead was only on Xbox? Didn't Microsoft sort of help fund it or
Yeah,
something?
they basically helped produce it, so yeah, they funded it.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess like in that way they sort of retained their like intellectual property so they could release it on other consoles, which is honestly smart thing to do. Don't honestly like unless you're going to starve to death, don't sell the rights to your your intellectual properties. Like don't sell it off completely.
And I think Microsoft is of the mind that that as long as they get the initial push right, because they want to
Mhm.
encourage people to partner with them and get the money and all that. As long as they get it's like Epic, right? Epic say, oh, we don't have like exclusive forever. We just sort of have it for 6 months, a year, right? Once they get those first weeks or months of sales, it doesn't matter, right? It matters for the publisher, right? Not the publisher, but the developer, because they keep getting sales, right? Especially every time they have a new launch, and the long longevity of the game. But it doesn't so much matter for say Microsoft or Sony because they already gotten what they want, which is the initial sales run, especially if they want to encourage people to keep buying their consoles. Talking about Sony, for those who still are using PSPs, this is from Kotaku and Brian Ashcraft. Today at 6 a.m. PSP owners, check your batteries. This weekend on Japanese Twitter, PSP, something PSP battery, started trending. Owners of the Sony handheld began noticing the batteries were swelling up and in some cases bursting open.
Oh.
The original PSP 1000, later slim models are reportedly experiencing battery swelling. The PSP first launched in 2004 in Japan, and IT Media points out the handheld might have been collecting dust. Perhaps an electric plate PSP are at the cost. On a Twitter user, Takonomi points out lithium batteries do eventually experience this over time. Yeah, because that's a battery rechargeable battery pack. It doesn't. It's not like you can just pop a battery from and change them. So yeah.
You would have to unscrew the device and to take it out.
Yeah, anything that uses batteries, especially proprietary batteries like that, right? You have to check it at least once a year, right? In the retro computing scene, like people who have done it with Amigas, old PCs, and stuff like that, they know about it. A lot of computers are notorious for having battery damage. Even the Xbox OC, for example, is notorious for having leaky batteries. So that's a thing you have to watch for, right? Let me see. We're gonna go for.
It looks like it.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's like I'm seeing rechargeable batteries for the original PSP, and looks like there's official ones still being sold, but that's gonna be like new old stock.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you could get like a knockoff, like a Chinese version of that, but your mileage may vary on those.
Um, this week we also had another huge Nintendo leak. This is from Kotaku. A huge Nintendo Giga leak reveals tons of SNES, SNES, and N64 secrets like Luigi in Mario 64 by Luke Plunkett. Now, Retro Gamer made a video about this. They're the best source for it. I'm gonna link you. I'm not gonna put it on the stream because my machine's gonna just crap itself if it tries to do that while streaming. But I think I have the link, so I'm gonna put the link there. They do a very good coverage of the material. I think I have it on our page or our yes. Here's the link. Modern Vintage Gamer has a link, so if you guys want to see it, or if you want to visit our Discord and join the Discord, you can also at Discord, and we'll give you the link. And as part of that leak, there's a couple of things. For example, there's this other news done by Ash Parrish on Kotaku. Star Fox 2 almost had a black female pilot with incredible hair, and she says that I am smitten. One trip information on the deluge coming from Nintendo latest Giga Leak was a source code on used assets for Star Fox 2, including a never before seen human character. Oh, human character.
Yeah, I saw some of the images. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, oh, they were gonna have a human character in it.
Complete 1995, Nintendo shelved the game out of fear. It is looking inferior to next-gen graphics of PlayStation. The game was subsequently released in unlockable title on SNES Classics in 2017, but none of that matters to me. Look at her. So if you want to look at the character, that's pretty cool. So there's that. Just give me a moment.
Oh yeah, the Nintendo leak. So the biggest thing with the whole Nintendo leak that I've at least this new batch of information that's come out. I believe this is still the same leak from a couple of months ago. Oh, like I I kind of find it funny that there's the audio lines, the un uncompressed
Sorry, guys.
audio
I thought I
lines
was
from
getting a call there. So
oh,
yeah, I mean it's Modern Vintage Gamer explains a lot of the details
mhm.
about this Giga Leak. He also says that essentially it's kind of hard to a lot of this stuff. Either some of the stuff was already known, but a lot of other stuff really. I mean, you can't really use it to hack or I mean, unless you want to
Yeah.
violate, get fired, not get fired, but get sued or even worse. So
Yeah, but essentially you can't use a lot of this stuff to like compile code, like original source
mhm.
code or anything. You're not gonna the biggest thing that's come out is that oh look, Luigi was gonna be in Super Mario 64, which like maybe like maybe they already had a model in
Mhm.
there and they couldn't because of the capacity of the cartridges they had to pull that model out of like the storage of the cartridge. And I always find it interesting when people data mine games to see what kind of like unused assets are there. Um, because a lot of times it seems like even though a lot of assets, even if they're unused, they still end up going gold with the rest of the content that's being used. Mostly because it's easier to just leave it there. It's not bothering anybody, rather than like clean up the like every single content thing that's in the game. Um, but I guess like in some cases, it would make sense to have to like cut everything that's super unnecessary because you only have so much space on your medium.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh.
But you're not I don't think you're gonna be able to use, like, this stuff and create, like, a version of Super Mario. I have seen, like, beta levels and stuff. You might be able to, throw in, like, some of this code into, like, the engine and stuff and play around with it if you know what you're doing, but I if as far as, like, what exactly would you do with this? Like, reconstruct, like, some sort of beta version of Super Mario 64?
For people who want to keep the history of the video games alive, I think it's a good source, right? You get to know how things are
Yeah.
done. And people who want to learn about how things are done, especially if you're doing a lot of retro gaming and other stuff like that, it's a good source. But again, that's the limitations. In a way, I like to say that yes, it's good that we have this information, but with the caveat that the sourcing is questionable. It probably involved some not quite legal acts therein.
Yeah, and, the biggest things that have come out are some of, like, some of those unused, art assets,
Mhm.
and And something I can really appreciate is like the fully uncompressed rendered artwork, especially when it comes to like the 64 stuff, like um the cover, the box art for Star Fox that's never been released. It's high res, it's so detailed versus anything that a lot of the stuff that had to be like compressed. It's nice to see like a lot of this detailed art and in its raw state, like uncompressed, just there. Um, one of the things I was talking about while trying to fill up air was the the whole thing with like Star Fox. I mean, there's a whole like unused art assets of like Star Fox 2, which of course did eventually get released. I'm not entirely sure. I really haven't looked into what's the difference between, say, the previously leaked unfinished version, which is versus like what the Super Nintendo Classic got. Like, what's the difference between these two ROM versions? Something I thought was neat was, like, the uncompressed lines in, from Star Fox 64. Star Fox 64 was my first, Nintendo 64 game because it came paired up with the console at
Hmm.
some point. Or actually, no, it might not have, but it my parents might have, bought it for me because I that's the game I really wanted. Most of you can probably guess why. The But it's interesting to hear, like, the all the audio lines from that game uncompressed because it's gonna have crappy compression, you gotta fit it on a cartridge, and without, like, the radio filters, because a lot of this communication is done through radio, so you have that nice clean, sound. And someone already beat me to, uh, making, like, an audio, version of a VG Cats comic that involved, Cloud and Falco shipping.
Oh boy. And of course, we're gonna get a ton of barrel rolls as well along the way.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
do a barrel roll. Uh, Talking about this is I found this news to be very interesting in a very weird way. From Kotaku, Unreal Engine used to create virtual baseball fans for MLB games by Brian Ashcraft. Uh, because of the novel coronavirus, the stands are not filled with people. In this case, in many sports fields, right? But cardboard cutouts of fans, dogs, or even Pocket Monsters plush toys. Next up, virtual baseball fans, courtesy of the Unreal Engine. As noted on Variety, Fox Sports is filling the stands of Wrigley Field, Dodger Stadium, National Park, and Petco Park. Petco, wow. With virtual fans created with the same tech used to power video games like Fortnite and Street Fighter 5. We had a vision of making our Major League Baseball broadcast look natural as they were before COVID, says Fox Sports executive Brad Sager. Not only can the fans be customized to support whatever team, but the crowd size can dwindle in later innings. If it's an 8-1 game, the crowd can be thinned out late in game, Sager added. I don't know. I mean, we already are in a world of deep fakes, so I don't know how comfortable I am with this. To be honest, I'm like, yeah, okay. So now we have fake fans in real games. I don't know.
Fake fans in real games, huh?
Let's just say that if we're talking about today, and there's a street shot of a smoke-filled street for some reason,
Yeah.
and now we may have fake people in those streets. Yikes! Just, I mean, it's not beyond imagination, of course, but the fact that we're getting closer and closer to that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that at all. Nope. 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 But talking about other things, I've seen this before in many places, but apparently it's actually officially a thing. G4 is coming back apparently from Ian Walker. Oh, Ian Walker.
The channel?
Yeah, the channel G4 TV. The Game Trollers television channel G4 has hinted at something happening next year via a brief video on the revived Twitter account. Oh, that is And while that is exciting for those of us who grew up watching G4 in the early 2000s, it's unclear what exactly will bring for today's audiences. The teaser was released during the IGN live broadcast as part of the ongoing comic book Comic Con at home event. The minute-long video tracks through a warehouse and ending in a camo Pong, which released high scores before cutting to G4 logo and the words 2021. And the words also, "We never stop playing." Following the teaser, a mysterious update, the G4 website immediately set the internet ablaze with speculation. Uh, I okay. I mean, this is. I remember watching Attack of the Show and X-Play and Morgan Webb and Adam Sessler and Olivia Munn, right? All those wonderful people in that channel. But I don't know if this is. I mean, is there an audience for a G4 in 2021?
I don't think so. Like, why? Maybe a G2 YouTube channel
Mm-hmm.
or a G4 YouTube channel. Like what? Like we essentially have replaced like G4 with YouTube. I think gamers making content for other gamers, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying that we're doing a better job than they are. Just that
Yeah.
we're kind of doing the job, in our own way. So yeah, I mean, this is just kind of very early stuff, but I wanted to highlight it because I have a love-hate relationship with this game. Fable makes a long-awaited return to the Xbox Game Showcase by Andy Shaw 5 days ago. It's a new beginning for the Fable series. Oof. Oof. Fable 4 rumors have been swirling since at least 2018 and got a big boost a few weeks ago when Microsoft renewed the Fable trademark with intent to use. Today's Xbox showcase finally go around to making it official, revealing a new beginning for Fable being developed by Forza Horizon Studio Playground Games, not Games. The new trailer didn't reveal much, although the big open landscape could handle some kind of open world game. No spoilers, but the end of the teaser suggests the Fable sometimes offbeat sense of humor remain intact too. Well, the only thing I really like it seemed like a return to the original Fable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kind of I like the fact that the Fable games there was an evolution. Like you had like the fantasy Fable, which was the first like D&D like Fable. Then you had like a clockwork Fable, situation. Oh God, this chair. In Fable 2, and then Fable 3 was like Victorian era, fantasy Victorian era, a steampunk sort of. It's just that the games that were attached to those themes were not really great, especially Fable 3. Some good ideas, but a poor execution. So I'm hoping that maybe this will be good eventually. Maybe. I don't know. And talking about last thing about new games that might be showcased. Twitch Indie Showcase will feature Garden Story, Nuts, Werewolf, and more. And they shock. The up close look at hidden gem indie games takes place tomorrow. So it'll be Wednesday. And the Cavalcade Online events continues tomorrow with Twitch Indie Showcase, an up close look at hidden gems chosen by the Twitch community. It will include gameplay, developer, and even a few special Easter eggs. Games such as Batbarian, Testament of the Primordials. Now Batbarian, Garden Story, Haven, Liberated, Neo Antigen, Nuts, Potions, A Curious Tale, Solar States, and Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. Werewolf the Apocalypse. Now, this is something I want to. What's this game all about?
I only know like Werewolf the Apocalypse as a tabletop.
Yeah, tabletop RPG from the makers of Vampire. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for I'm waiting for like a video game version of the equivalent of like Vampires and Masquerade for werewolves for the Werewolf of the Apocalypse.
No, it's from the World of Darkness, so it's basically the same world, right? World of
Yeah.
So yeah, it was there. They had Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf Apocalypse. They had Changeling something, and another one with Wizards. So they had about 4 or 5 products that were all in this world of darkness of urban fantasy. But Vampire the Masquerade was the one that had the most draw because of the LARPing, right? So there was that. But yeah,
That's I'm waiting for like my werewolf like tabletop centric video game, I guess.
yeah, probably that's the thing we're gonna see. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Although I'm personally just kind of tired of like this whole like I've never understood the whole like werewolves versus vampires thing. It's like it seems kind of dumb to me.
I think it comes back to when they were making monster movies back in old Hollywood, where the werewolf will show up, and they basically the first mashups, crossovers,
Yeah, the Wolfman versus Dracula.
yeah, that's where it comes from, basically. Yeah, they were like, oh yeah, we can do that better by being more goofy and gothic and whatever, American Gothic or whatever they want to call it. So yeah, that's what they did. Although most people that I know, most of the LARPing was from Vampire the Masquerade. Most people actually play werewolf actually played on the tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the split. I guess because people were not willing to invest in the actual fursuits and have fursuits, which
Yeah.
now I think. Although I kind of think that
I would feel like people just slap on some like dog ears or
yeah, I mean, not to belittle the furry community because I don't have the talent to do that. But most of the fairy stuff it's designed to look like it's cartoonish. So if you
Yeah.
try to make realistic werewolf stuff, that could be very both expensive and hard to pull off, especially in the tropics, which doing in the summer you're gonna just suffocate. So
Yeah, that's sort of like why I don't think I can ever really have a fursuit is like the fact that I would want something so like realistic it would require like Hollywood levels of like prosthetics and make it look just so disturbingly realistic, I guess, versus the cartoony, which is fine. It's cute, but I prefer like if I'm gonna have a fursuit, I would prefer something like super realistic.
not to say the people actually make the fursuits they do
Yeah.
wonderful jobs. I'm not saying it's a wonderful community. I know a lot of people slam them, but I think it's unfair, to be honest. Like many things within geekdom, most the worst people that dunk on something are other geeks because that's how we are.
Yep.
So now we go back to the part of the program in which we talk about the main subject when my chair behaves. So I apologize for that. When my chair behaves. So give me a moment. Yeah, I'm ordering a new chair from Amazon. I'm tired of this. Anyway, and let's talk about because there's been just this year, 2020 has been a horrible year. Relentless bad news. We always talk about microtransactions and stuff like that in the show. I wanted to take a break and just chat about things that we like that bring joy, why we play video games and why do they bring joy to us. We've done this before, but it's going. This is a thing that I think want to go back to the well again, and. Oops. Oh, sorry, we had a slight freeze there, but we're back. I was like, and apparently my computer didn't, or either Twitch or my computer didn't like the fact that we were trying to bring joy to you folks. So now where would we start? I just finished Dragon Age Inquisition, and I'm gonna say one of the things that brought me joy about that game last time I played it was the fact that I could play Chipper between the Iron Bull and Dorian Palace. Normally, I'm not a big chipper. I rag. I like being a geek. I rag on other people doing geeky things. But that really brought me joy. It's like I was playing the game. I was playing the secondary game where I was like, okay, I got to bring these two characters together and spend as much time with them together and do their stories as early as possible because I want them to get together. I don't know why they're being together is usually not mechanically important, but that's what I wanted to do. Because I already played the game, I know how it goes, but I wanted to see how far I could take that story, right? And I think that goes into a lot of games having games that can have like secondary objectives, like the replayability is not about doing the main thing, the gameplay, what have you. It's actually going back and say, well, I did the game, I finished the game, I know how it goes, I enjoyed that. now I want to do the second thing, and doing romances is something that actually brings me back to video games rather than the reason why I play video games in the first place.
Yeah.
But
I'd have to agree. I'm actually right now like revisiting a game I played earlier and I made a video on like Endless Bounty. That's sort of like what the purpose of that game is. It has multiple endings, but it also has like it has like three romances. So uh the fact that you can there is a story you kind of have to progress and there's like a time restriction to get to a certain point before that restriction gets lifted. The so, I mean, that's always the same, like, puzzles are always gonna be the same, but it's the romances and trying to unlock these other endings is what's supposed to keep you coming back.
yeah, also talking about replaying games, I like the fact you can replay games. In more than just a movie. I guess I can watch a movie once in a while, but I've never been somebody who
Rewatch
ever
it.
got into buying movies, because to me, I can watch a movie maybe once, a couple of times a year, maybe whenever it
Yeah.
comes on TV or whatever I get across to it. But I'm not a person who goes like, I need to watch. I don't know the this. I don't know. As much as I love that series, Lord of the Rings, every month or every day or something like that. I'm not. I can't do that, right? Not
Yeah.
me. Oh god damn it! This chair is just rebelling. It's. Sorry about that, folks. As me bouncing up and down, it's just my chair is just going like, eh. Uh, Also, I have to lose weight, so there's that. But I like the idea of just being able to go back to a game and just replaying it, right? Again, Dragon Age Inquisition, I played before. Many times I played Mass Effect, for as much as we rag on BioWare. Last week I got into Stardew Valley, and it was like, oh, just zone out and just started playing again and again and getting those beeps and boops and just doing it again and again and again. I like that. I like just sort of being able to just zone out and get into a game. And so yeah, that's the thing I like
Oh.
to do. And I think that's good that you and pairing with that, and yeah, I've again we criticize terms like microtransactions and live services, but the fact that you can expand on a game like a DLC stuff like that. Like one of the things about Stardew Valley
Yeah.
is that they expanded stuff. Like now the end game has an extra content, so that there's more stuff that you can get into bundles and stuff like that, so you can help other characters and explore the stories of those characters. And it's like, oh, this is cool, right? It's a little bit that it keeps
Yeah.
you going
And
back. Yeah,
I think like another game that did that a lot was Shovel Knight. Like they kept adding content and stuff. And a lot of times like it's neat when they do this for free.
mm-hmm.
And especially like it's like, hey, we like to keep our fans happy. Thank you for buying the game. It will also bring in new audiences to pick up the game. But I mean, I would think that profit wise, that would be it'd be better to sell the DLC off to people. Um, because I would assume most of your profit is going to come from all the initial sales because that's when most of the people are going to buy it. You might have some spikes where word of mouth gets around, but for the most part, I assume that most of the sales are going to be like through like the game's first year.
Yeah.
But I think there is like a benefit to like, hey, we're gonna keep adding and improving it. It will get new eyes to it, especially that word of mouth gets around. It's like, oh my god, they added this. Like, hey, I'm kind of looking for a game that does that. Like, let me buy it. Let me check it out.
Yeah, another thing I like about video games, and again, it's something I criticize when it's done wrong or exploited, but I actually like the fact that we are in a digital age. Like again, I one of the things I started doing last night, in for all the criticism we leveled at Steam here, Steam does actually has evolved into a good store. How, for example, I got Star Wars: The Old Republic to Steam, and it was much simpler to play that game through Steam that it was from Origin, right?
Hmm.
And getting that, it's like, oh, getting, and also the fact that the game is free to play. Again, when done right, free to play is great because you can actually experience the game without feeling pressure to actually buy it. I think that's the key of free to play, is that it's not a bad idea if you don't feel like you have to buy in order to sort of catch up with people. Like you don't have that sort of pressure, like, oh, you gotta have buy the dances or like that, like Fortnite, where you have to sort of like, oh, you don't want to look like a noob, you gotta buy all the stuff. But
Yeah.
something like Star Wars: The Old Republic, at least as far as I'm playing it, I feel like, yeah, I can abandon it any time, but I'm exploring it right now, and if I actually do like it, I'll probably buy one expansions or buy a subscription or do something, right, in order to probably not buy a subscription. I'll probably buy like a DLC. There's a one-time deal as well. So when done right, free to play can be a great way to explore a game, right? Um, Not to say that SWTOR or Tor is perfect. It is basically, World of Warcraft, but in Star Wars form. So if you don't like to play that, then. But I also like the fact that it has individualized stories, right? So it's like, oh yeah, there's some areas where people are doing things, but I can ignore all that and just go and do my own story. And if it kind of feels like it's my story, even though it's a story that everybody's doing because it's the story of the characters. But yeah, I mean, that's something I really like. Do you have anything that you actually brings you joy when it comes to video games?
Well, like you talked about a lot of like the romances. I I like the idea of experiencing like new perspectives and or new ideas that I would have never I've never would have thought of, even if they're negative. They're even if they're kind of like negative experiences. I like the fact that I can get like my give my empathy essentially a workout and contemplate new ideas or new perspectives. There's a lot of like different stories that can be told, and that's what I like. It's seeing seeing sometimes it's set in fantasy world, sometimes it's set in our world. Seeing like a perspective from a different person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whether that gets done well or not, I mean, mileage varies there too, but I that's one of the things I like. Um, but sometimes it can also give you inspiration to do your own work. I mean, you can look at all my like romance videos for that. I mean, a lot of people have had like, I guess, like a they've been inspired enough to like write fan fiction. Doesn't have to be dirty, but like the idea of like writing your own fanfic and then maybe making your own world, and could lead to something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And to new ideas as well. Essentially, that's what I really like. It's that, and of course, it's a fun pastime as well.
Yeah.
And personally, like I like the why I like video games more than like saying watching a movie is that it feels more interactive rather than passive. Even if like a video game might be linear,
Mm-hmm.
it might be pretty straightforward, but at least I'm interacting with the story, with this narrative, with this media in a way versus just kind of sitting there. Like you can interact with it in with movies in ways if you watch if you're watching with someone and discussing what's going on in the movie. But for the most part, like you're not going to always have that, especially someone if you don't have someone else around. And of course, you can also do that with video games too. So it's another level of interaction with that media.
Yeah, talking about interactions, I was thinking also one thing I like is a sense of discovery.
Mm.
Like I do get a genuine sort of almost like a rush anytime I'm just walking around and it's like you turn around and there's this new area. Just being in a new area is like, oh, this is cool, right? Because it feels like it's like a virtual vacation. Like, oh, I've never been to this place before. Like, and I remember playing Skyrim very early on, and this is a place called the Sky Temple. And you walk out of the Sky Temple, one of the exits, and then you see this vista of the mountains. We're talking about 360 graphics by here, so not as pretty as they are today, but it was impressive. It was like, wow, like I'm virtually in this space and I can see these mountains, and it's a sense of just being there. I remember when I played originally the first GTA 3. And now today, I mean, the graphics are very plasticky and stuff like that. But there, I was like, I feel like I'm in a movie. I said that's before when we talk about things that we like, but it's worth repeating. Just going to a new zone, a new planet, a new area. To me, that's like there's always new things to discover, interact, new characters, new stuff, right? A proper game feels like an act, not only act of doing stuff, but in also an act of discovery. Like where you watch a movie, you kind of like, okay, this they're gonna be in a, it's a TV series, it's gonna be a rom-com, what they're gonna be mostly in an apartment, right? And that kind of like thing that I really liked about sort of the Planet of the Week from Star Trek and stuff like that. They go to new places and discover new things. But again, it's me doing it. It's not, it's not Captain Kirk or Picard. They're
Yeah.
doing it because it feels detached. It's like, oh, they're going to a new place, but I can really see this. Just they change around little things on the, most of the time they're stuck in the bridge because there's limitations to how many times they can do a new planet, right? You know,
Oh no, we're totally getting attacked.
yeah. But here it feels like no, I actually went to a new planet and saw new things and did new things. And that factor, it's weird because I'm the kind of person that once I find something I really like in a game, like I think I gave this example before. There's the last level of the original StarCraft, the Terran campaign, human campaign. I played the hell out of that. In fact, if I could get it again, I would probably just play it again and again and again because I just like that you know, I just like the repetition. I just like going there and just throwing out nukes and stuff like that. But I also like new things, right? I think one of the things in even Inquisition, I liked that there's almost, especially with DLC, there's new places you can go and to see, right, and explore. And like I like to read have a peek of the little book that says something about this. It's like, oh, you can find some stuff. That to me is it's a reward unto itself, right? So I always like good exploration mechanics when they're done well, of course. But yeah, that's one of the things I actually love. Open world games and just many games, just even games that feel more linear, you still do more things. Like even when they take familiar elements and sort of creatively reshuffle them around, it's like so I can see that you were being inventive and creative with this. Like this is a cool thing, right? Um, Also, a weird thing that I'm finding I'm liking recognizing voice actors and actresses. Now that but you
Hmm.
when you're not playing, you're like, oh, that's like last night I was playing. There's a Twi'lek. I want to say Twi'lek, but it's Twi'lek. Who you come in, they are this particular group of Twi'leks are a matriarchy, right? The old matriarch is sick, has a daughter who's gonna be a new matriarch, and when she started speaking, I'm like, Liara, is that
Yeah.
you? So she, and it's you say, oh, she's playing the same role, kinda, but it's like, oh, I remember her, right? I remember her, or I always love when Laura Bailey is doing anything. She has many voices, she has range, but usually she gets the husky, uh, feminine voice, like, oh yes. Even when she's playing someone who's angry and stuff like that, she's always has that sort of husky voice, like romance category voice. And I always find that's like, oh, that's Laura Bailey. But then you see some like Critical Role, and she has like a much higher pitch role, which shows her talent. So it's almost like discovering old friends, right? It's like, oh, I don't know this person personally, we don't have a personal relationship, but it's like, oh, I've seen that person, because it's different to see them on screen over there, but you're kind of interacting with them, and you remember other things that you, I guess, being together in. You as a player, and then as a voice actress representing a character, and it has
Hmm.
a particular flavor to it it's great. It's just great. Um,
And
it,
I guess another thing is just like the thing that with voice actors is that they tend to give life to the characters. And of course, it really depends on the narrative, but it really like you can tend to like fall in love with characters, and not just in a sexual way, but you just, oh my god, like I admire these characters. I love them. I want to see what happens to them.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
get essentially you get invested with the characters.
I do like the fact that a well-made game with a solid narrative scaffolding can make you invest in a character, situations, plots, right? A good game has to make you want to do the things that the game asks you to do, and you get joy out of doing them. And not simply because you want to get stronger and more powerful. The power of fantasy is like you want to achieve things. I think that's the thing I really like about video games. Even though Joe Rogan said that you actually don't do anything because it's virtual, yeah, he's right. You're not really doing anything, but then you're not doing much of anything in your 9 to 5 job anyway. Because, literally you can be an accountant, and the moment you retire, somebody's going to sit in your seat, or you're going to be replaced by a computer, and it's going to chug on, and you haven't really achieved much of anything. Very few people actually achieve anything of substance that changes the world. In video games, when properly done, you have that illusion of control, that you feel like you actually did something, like saving the world. I can, things are feeling shitty. I can escape into a fantasy where I slay the dragon and save the world from horrible things, right? That's therapeutic. That's great. People knock on the power fantasy, but there's a reason why it's so popular. Because in the real world, we're kind of powerless. Especially today, in 2020.
Yeah.
So, like, whenever you feel like you can't. And people say it's an outlet for violence, stuff like that, but I think it's more of an act of empowerment. Also, communities. When you do find a good, like any hobby, you find a good, healthy community to share your banter and your ideas. That's great too, because you have a shared language, right? There is something about watching other people love the thing that you care about as much, if not more, than you, and be really passionate. Again, we criticize taking it to the extreme, but it's not inherently wrong. It's just how you how you focus on it. And yeah, just having a good community, just having people are like, yeah, we like the same things you do, and we're gonna be nerdy about it and have discussions about it, and go write fan fiction about it. I mean, I've had a long running discussion with somebody, I think there's a follower channel as well, about Mass Effect. They're writing fan fiction, and the questions that this person throws at me, very nerdy, very deep lore questions. I mean, they're great because it's part of both celebration but also exploration as well. Trying to understand how this thing was put together. It's great, and yeah, I mean, that's one of the other reasons it's ironically tangential to video games, but it is part of video games community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I don't know. I guess with that though, stay away from like multiplayer games with like chat system.
Yeah, there's some areas you have to avoid, of course. That's also another thing about video games. A good video game, especially modern gaming, allows you to tailor made and mod things to make the game yours in a way that, again, other experiences cannot be made yours, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I want to have this mod. Oh, somebody in communities, like, people have mods, and I don't want to get into the darker mods, but I mean, never mind, I don't want to get there. But there's a lot of mods like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, you want to add this thing to your house in Skyrim? Well, can I do that?
Here you go.
Yeah, there you go. Go, and then you go into Skyrim. It's like, wow, my house looks great. It has like 5 beds.
Or
you know.
like some people have made like amazing like mods where they act like they add companions and side quests, and sometimes they even manage to throw in voice acting.
And it expands your experience. I remember there was one mod, and the only thing that actually marred that mod was that because of voice acting, they decided to go with computer voicing. But there's a massive mod for Dragon Age Origins which deals with Hal's older son. And the idea is that you go back if you're playing as a Kuzlin, you go back to your castle, you fight your way through the whole thing, save, people and all that, and then you face Hao's elder son, and you get to kill him or spare him, whatever, right? Uh, and that was all fan made, right? And imagine if that, and it feels people like, what happened here? We can create content to fill in what we think is a gap here of what
Mm-hmm.
happened, instead of, because designers were like, that's not important, but we're gonna put it to the side, which is also a good decision. But they made that mod, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, cool. I mean, that's also the modability of games. Not all games are easily modded, but again, fan communities can create content that at times is, well, anything done by Bethesda better than. Um, so yeah, um, and also it's a, let's be honest, I like video games because actually you can play them, and stream them and share them with people, and we can talk about them on the stream. So that's always a cool thing. So yeah, there's a lot to still
Yeah.
like about video games.
Yep. For better for worse, with the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Chapman, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me Chopomon pretty much anywhere. I am Chopomon underscore, just the underscore. I've got rid of the Aragon for making it a little more concise. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just Chopomon underscore on Twitch and Twitter. You can find me on YouTube under Chopomon.
And of course, you can find me here on the podcast every Tuesday whenever possible. I have other projects that I'm working on that I will be announcing soon. I'm gonna try tonight to see if we can stream the no, I want to say Stars Without Number, which is tabletop RPGs. No Man's Sky. I have a lot of tabletop RPG stuff in my head as of late, and play that. And on Sundays, you can find me at Raktos channel, GMing Ironclaw, the Isles. So thank you, everybody, for coming, and as always, we'll see you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.